In nearly 2 decades of teaching game, I've realized that while students have unique personalities, unique strengths, almost everybody is doing the same things wrong. And that's why student Infield is one of the absolute best ways to learn. So what I've done is I've taken a video from inside Verbal Game, and this is a video where a student went out in field, he approached some girls, and I talked to him about what he did well, what he did poorly. And chances are you're doing a lot of the same things wrong. So let's learn about your sticking points and his sticking points right now.
Hello there.
Hi.
Hi. I see like a girl with an interesting jacket type. I'm like, I don't know, I gotta approach her and see what she's about. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, cool. So for that opener, what's good and what's bad in your opinion? Yeah, no, just lie to me. Yeah. No, what do you think?
Well.
What's good, what's bad?
The good is that I continue talking regardless of what I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because then I realized like, what the fuck am I saying? But
Sure.
Again, he already mentioned the distance.
Okay.
And also it seemed very like, how do I say it? Giving too much power, basically.
Sure, a little bit maybe. Okay. So you are kind of explaining a little bit. That's true. The other thing is you don't seem like you're super excited, or you don't seem like, you're just like kind of like, hi, I'm here going through the motions, etc. Right? It's kind of weird because you are going over to approach. You're making this walkover and this commitment, but if it seems like you don't want to be there, then there's an incongruence, and the girl, oftentimes in that case, the girl may get suspicious, or be like, well, why is this guy even talking to me, or something like that. But the things you said are actually quite genuine. It's going to build some trust. So you'll actually probably, especially with a seated set where the girl's, obviously not going anywhere, not a huge amount of impact necessary to keep her attention, you'll probably get the open here, and you'll probably even get it in what is a socially favorable way, right? But there's a difference between socially favorable and she's attracted to you. So you will get the open doing it this way, but you'll have dug yourself a little bit of a hole by being self-qualifying, being a little too apologetic, etc. So it's workable. It's not the end of the world, but it's definitely soft, and definitely you've given up a little bit of value, right? If your voice was a little louder, if your tonality was a little more biting and cutting, and if your energy was a little higher, that would be good. And then if you kind of just acted like, I'm here and I don't have a problem with it, as opposed to I'm here and I feel the need to explain it. So those are some things on the open.
No, you're good. You're good.
I'm good. I had my coffee already.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yes. So what's your story? Well, let's start with your name. Nice to meet you. So, mind if I sit?
Sure. Just so you know, I do have a boyfriend.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I guess my question is...
I'd probably start with that.
Hey, I mean, I'm open to girls with boyfriends, yeah. No. It's not a flaw for me.
Okay. So the boyfriend thing, the fact that you're getting that is good and bad, right? So if you're getting that, that means that at least she is seeing you as viably there as a sexual prospect. That you at least came off that much man to woman. So that's positive. However, when you get I have a boyfriend, it usually means that the amount of forwardness in the set exceeds the amount of value in the set. So for example, on the open, right, it's very clear your intention to talk to her. Your value, however, is not as much. So that's the kind of open that's going to get I have a boyfriend a decent amount. That said, it'll happen, sometimes regardless, right? No matter how good your open is, sometimes you'll get I have a boyfriend. How you handle I have a boyfriend is not that. Right? So the problem with that one is you're asking, so your opener kind of said, your opener in being direct said, I want to sleep with you. Are you good with that? Right? And then it wasn't super high value. Your response to have a boyfriend is, I want you to cheat on your boyfriend with me, even though you don't know me that well. Right? The way to deal with the boyfriend early on, she doesn't know that much about you, but she at least tolerated you sitting, is tolerating your company. So that means you have a window to convey your actual personality and convey value. And once you've utilized that window, you're probably going to have more value in her eyes than you do now. So rather than ask her to make the decision, him or my boyfriend right now, why not ask her to make that decision 5 minutes from now, after you've actually gotten to know her and conveyed some value? So typically what you want to do with I have a boyfriend off the open is you just want to kick the can down the road and deal with it later. Right? So typically that's cool. Like I just met you. I figured we'd talk a little bit before we got into anything relationshipy anyway. Something like that. Right? Or no, that's I don't mind as long as you're interesting to talk to. I didn't, that kind of thing. And then you just talk for a little bit, and then once you flirted and once there's attraction, then now maybe she regrets telling you she had a boyfriend, and then good things can happen. But here, that's a very I don't mind girls with boyfriends.
It away. I was like, I don't know how to answer this. I might as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is the swing for the fences answer, right? You're either gonna strike out the vast majority of the time, and then every once in a while, she'll be like, oh, okay, right, once in a blue moon. But yeah, not the most strategic.
Hi there. I was walking by and I'm like, she has an interesting look, and I have to say hi.
You're just going straight into explaining yourself right away. In general, in game, try to avoid feeling like you need to explain yourself. Okay, if you say something that you think is imperfect and you feel like explaining or justifying, rather than doing it right then, wait and see. Because oftentimes she's not going to have the negative reaction you're anticipating, right? Most times in game, you know all the things you were thinking, you know all the things you could have said, and you know all the insecurities you're having, and so you're assuming that she's sensing all of that. Most of the time she's not. Most of the time she's catching a tiny fraction of it. And oftentimes all the bad reactions or bad impressions you think you're making weren't made with her. But as soon as you start justifying and explaining them, now it's assumed that those were the case.
So what's your story? Nice to meet you. Well, what's happening? What are you up to? Oh, really? That's awesome. That's super cool. And right, okay. Just trying to. I'm pretty bad with names, but that's awesome. So is this like you're not from? I'm gonna guess.
No, I'm originally from. Yeah.
Okay, but wow, how is that like?
All right, so again, same as in the last set, just too many questions. All right, so so first of all, I know the answer to this, but I want to know if you know the answer to this. Why do you ask questions instead? What motivates you to do it?
I want her first of all compliant. I want her to talk a lot.
Okay, yeah, you'd like to get her talking, sure.
And I also want her to invest. I don't know. It's in dates in general. I try to get the girl talking more than me.
Okay.
So I kind of do that with here.
Okay, so that's actually a decent philosophy. That's actually like a decent thing, a decent reason for questions. My guess was that the reason you're asking questions was that you just didn't know what else to say, right? That's the most common thing, especially for the get to know you questions, right? If your idea for asking questions is genuinely to get her to talk, it's actually good. But you should be asking interesting questions then and not boring questions. So it shouldn't be, oh, how long have you been here? Where are you from? What do you do? Those are boring questions. Interesting questions, like she says she works or something like that. Oh, that's interesting. Like what motivated you to do, right? That's not, most kids when they stand up at 5 years old and say, what are you going to do for a living? They don't go, I want to. But it's funny because people I meet, most of them are very happy people, right? Now I offered value. I had a perspective. I asked a more interesting question. Not what do you do, but why did you get into it? What made you passionate about it, etc. So that's the I want to get you talking question, right?
So more why questions.
More open-ended questions. Why questions is fine. Questions that give your perspective in answering the question. Where even as you ask the question, you're offering value because it's a unique question. Does that make sense? Yeah. So what do you do for a living is boring. Why did you decide to become a doctor? Was there some event that made that a thing for you? That's an interesting question, right? Or didn't you want to kill yourself during med school with all the memorization? That's a more interesting question, right? Does that make sense? Because you brought your own perspective, you brought value to the table. So what to do instead of asking boring questions? 1, ask interesting questions instead, which is completely fine and good. 2 is go ahead and ask the boring question, but then once you get the boring answer, then use that as a catalyst to offer value. So use that boring answer as a reason to tease them or to have a perspective or something like that. What do you do for a living? I'm a lawyer. Oh, it's interesting. I was thinking about being a lawyer when I was in college, but I decided not to for this, and this reason. How'd you deal with that? Right? So now you actually offered some value around it. Or, what do you do for a living? I'm a lawyer. Oh shit, well, we're definitely not going to get along. I always win my arguments and I just don't want to do that to your ego. So, right? You can tease different things like that. But so you can, so first, ask better questions. 2, if you're going to ask the boring question and use it as a catalyst. Or 3, answer the question instead of asking it. So instead of, are you a lawyer, or sorry, instead of like, what do you do for a living? You strike me as someone professional, or you seem like the type of person that works like an 80-hour week and XYZ, right? So you can answer the question. But any of the things what you're trying to do is still offer value in some way.
Let's do this. I don't know, this week might not work out, but next week, you know, if you're free, we'll grab a drink or something.
Okay.
Yeah, is that cool?
I could give
Yeah.
you my number.
I'll put my phone. Oh yeah. Let's see. Either way works. You'll save it however you want to save it.
Oh, that is funny. He just did the super playerish thing and then nice. Typically anything, you don't want to do things that imply that you do a lot of approaches or stuff like that. So typically I wouldn't verbalize that, but it is funny nonetheless.
That's so interesting. I don't know anything about it, honestly. Like, though, yeah, no offense. I've never been to that part of the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's not really
So here's a good example of something you can do, right? You've never, I'm sure you know stereotypes about it or other things you can tease about that or something like that, right? Feel free.
Yeah.
Feel free. It's okay to tease and be wrong too, right? And the fact that you're being lighthearted and trying to tease and have fun makes a big difference.
I've actually heard like people from like that side of the world, like fuck it, like they leave and they're like, I'm done with it.
Yeah.
So that's cool though. I personally, like, I know people from the city who are like, oh, I wish I can get a quiet time and shit. I'm like, fuck that.
Yeah.
Like, I love the city, I love the rush, you know. And you have parks with constructions and
this is good, like expressing your personality, expressing opinions. Whether or not she even agrees with your opinions, just the fact that you are expressing them freely is great.
cute girls sitting on the bench, you know.
Look at that, actual man to woman. Nice.
I don't know if you get that. But yeah,
No.
that's fun. Awesome. So nice to meet you. Take care. All the best.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
So there, I don't know how long you had between where you were and you certainly could have stayed a few more minutes and made it more solid if you wanted to. There, you didn't need to, and you did say, you know, I have to leave in a minute, and so it's not weird for you to leave now. But you certainly had permission to stay longer if you wanted to. And given that with the phone number, you're going to have to go on a date and get to know her, putting in more of the get to know you before getting the number will make the number more solid. So you certainly could have stayed longer if you wanted to.
So you mean like just in terms of before or after getting the numbers, the same thing in this scenario, right?
Yeah, you could stay longer before getting the number, you could stay longer after. Weirdly enough, time spent after getting the number is actually better as an anti-flaking measure than time spent before. Because time spent before getting the number is, well, first of all, you relaxed and became fun after getting the number. Like if you continued being that awesome self, you know, it would have really helped with your anti-flaking. But time spent after the number, even if you were, you know, charismatic both times, after getting the number, you guys have committed to, you like each other and there's a possibility of hanging out. And she's now interacting with you with that positive expectation. So the time after the number is actually more useful or more useful per minute spent or whatever for comfort building than the before time was. So if you had two sets, right? You have 25 minutes before getting the number and like you leave right as soon as you get the number versus you have 10 minutes before getting the number and 10 minutes after. Even though that second set was shorter, 20 minutes instead of 25, you would be much more likely to have the girl actually show up. So the video you just saw was an excerpt from inside Verbal Game Academy. That entire video, as well as hours and hours more content and my entire system of exactly what to say to a woman in every context, all the way from hello to sex or a relationship, is contained within that course. And it's actually on sale for a very limited time right now at verbalgameacademy.com. Also, there are live courses currently going on that are still in progress. You don't want to miss them. Again, that's all at verbalgameacademy.com.